Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of BIM After Dark Live. How's it going? My name is Jeff, also known as the Revit Kid. Thank you for joining us. Today we have some awesome guests and a really cool topic. We're going to be talking about, in a larger picture, developers, architects, and how technology and all of that intertwines, and then digging into the geeky part, talking about some of the Revit integrations and the program called TestFit. We've got the group from TestFit Inc. here. So before we jump into that, I did want to mention and thank BIMbox for sponsoring this episode. Unfortunately, I don't think my little BIMbox thing is going to work today. Maybe let's see if it rolls. Let's see. All right, that part worked, but all the stuff that tells you where to go didn't, so that's okay. For those of you that don't know what BIMbox is, it is a computer manufacturing company who builds desktops and laptops. The difference between BIMbox and their competitors is, well, they're BIM boxes. They're designed and optimized for Revit. Okay, so if you're interested and you're looking for a new laptop or desktop, they've got a couple of great benefits that some other companies don't. One is they'll ship to you in 10 to 14 days. They've got a 3-year warranty with all of their products, and they're freaking beasts. I can tell you from experience, I've been using the laptop as well here, and I'm super excited. You guys have probably seen the desktop in my other camera background. I'm moving offices around like crazy right now in the house. I'm super excited to set up the desktop and actually use it as a full-time streaming machine for you guys to actually see the power of that. Right now, it gets flipped on when I need to do heavy-duty power stuff. So if you're interested and you're looking for a new laptop or desktop and you want to know what the best one is for Revit, I'm telling you right now, it's BIMbox, and to head on over to bimbox.bimafterdark.com. You can check out this sale page there, or you can just email sales@bimboxusa.com. Buck and his crew will take care of you. They're awesome. So feel free to reach out, and feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions on that. Awesome stuff. So thank you, BIMbox, for sponsoring this episode. And I'm going to introduce my guests now, and we're just going to start chatting because they're kind of these little floating heads in the corner. Once I remember how to unspotlight myself, there we go. and I'll hit to a gallery view. There we go. Normally, when I have two guests, it's a lot easier to manage this, but the more guests we have, the more fun it is. So, Clifton and Nat, welcome to BIM After Dark Live. Thanks for
Yes, hi.
joining.
Thanks
for having
Clifton
us.
Harness. I am the TestFit kid.
The TestFit Kit, nice. I did want to remind everyone here on the chat that we are live, and so make sure to feel free to chat, ask questions, interact with us while we go along. We're going to have a nice conversation, but we encourage the interaction. That's why I like doing the live. Before we jump in, I guess maybe a quick introduction. I know, Clifton, you just said you're the TestFit Kid, but maybe maybe we'll try a little more formal introduction. So maybe, Clifton, if you want to start just letting everyone know who you are and what you do.
Sure. Yeah. So Clifton Harness. I'm a Texan. Live in Dallas, Texas. I was fortunate enough to convince my college roommate, now CTO Ryan Grieg, to help me automate parking garages. Was really where I got started, and my absolute hatred for counting parking spaces. And that started a now 4-year long journey of basically how do we disrupt planning, the planning process, get people out of trace, get them into data-driven design tools.
Awesome. And Nat McDonald, what's up, man?
So my name is Nat MacDonald. I'm a licensed mechanical engineer. And in the past 7 or so years, I've followed a pretty traditional engineering pathway at a variety of different firms, Burrow Happold being the last one. And during that time, I picked up a lot of computational design knowledge and passion and stuff like that. And so recently decided to make the jump over to TestFit into software. I felt like that was a place that I could really scale that design knowledge. And so far, so good. So yeah, that's my background.
So you went from ducts and diffusers to parking spaces? Is that what you're telling me?
Yes, and I hate ducts. I'm so over ducts. It's amazing how that's the one thing that people are like, oh yeah, you're an HVAC engineer. You know, you like ducts, right? And it's like, no, I hate ducts. They're only meant to bring air from one spot to another.
They serve one purpose.
Are what's cool. Yeah.
Awesome. So we already got a bunch of people here live. Wow. We got someone here from Australia, 2:30 in the morning. What are you doing watching this show at 2:30 in the morning, Australia? But thank you.
That's gotta be Gavin.
That's the after dark crew.
Yeah, right. It's actually noon here for me, and I think it's earlier for you guys then, right? Or Nat, I actually don't know what time zone you're in, but I know
I'm East Coast. I'm up in Massachusetts right now.
All right. So it's lunchtime for you too. Awesome. And Parallax is here. Aaron's here, and he said he loves parking spaces, of course. What's up, Aaron?
No, you don't. No, you don't.
Awesome. All right. So we were trying to sort of figure out how we wanted to structure this, and I do think that there's some value in exploring, where TestFit, not test fitting, but TestFit, fits into the AECO industry, and so. And I personally, I will be the first to admit that I am not completely knowledgeable in the developer-led side or the developer side of this. My extent of dealing with developers in my architecture and construction history is mostly making renderings for them or early designs for them that were usually just yelled at for being too expensive. And then that was mostly it. This looks fancy. I don't know what to tell you. It's brick. I mean, I don't know. I guess. And so that's most of my work with developers was that. But I did do some plans, for developers, and I wouldn't consider them test fits. They're more just plans. But that's pretty much my extent. So I'm always interested, and I mentioned before we jumped on live that I saw one of your presentations in Seattle, Clifton. And you definitely did a deep dive into sort of the relationship, the money, and it was eye opening to see. So I don't think we have time for that today, but I do think maybe giving sort of an overview of the sort of more existential picture of how not just test fit, but the idea of architect developer relationship and how this all plays. I'd be super interested in hearing, and I'm sure everyone else would be too.
So I'm trying to present a thing. Did it work?
Yeah, I see. It says it's a red screen that says generative design. Is that right?
Yep.
Awesome. All
right. So generative design, a great idea with a solid history of poor implementation. It's kind of was my hypothesis, and I'm gonna scream through this deck. It's the current stuff is terrible. UI UX. You draw a rectangle, how do you do that? Well, I got to wire up all these points and these nodes, and then you can finally draw a rectangle. And then you extrude it, and then you get a box. The box has no more information to it other than all of these points. Blocked in a moving box. So, nobody, AEC, let's build a massive script in the world's worst IDE, integrated development environment. Burn 3 months. Maintain it on top of 5 other applications are rapidly changing. And then AEC is also saying, we spent 3 months on this. Why can't it also do these 12 things? So that is, this is what they do. They make a little function and then turn it into a bigger function. They wire all these things together. It's not programming, it's visual programming. So only one person really understands what the hell is going on. There's also another problem that, if you're going to do this stuff, it's kind of on top of other things, and that has inherent instability. And then maybe you build some stuff for Fractal, and then Fractal died. I need to update this slide because I think Refinery's dead now too.
The name is right. in name only.
The name is dead. And then you're kind of maintaining all this stuff, constant upkeep to keep it running. It's free. All of this stuff is free. I hear this all the time. Why would I pay for TestFit when Autodesk generative design is free? Well, all of this stuff is technically free. You just have to figure out how to use it. Lack of support and documentation, the developer developing it might lose interest in it. Costs thousands of dollars to develop good scripts internally. And the worst thing, honestly, is that firm leadership is kind of not taking it seriously. Built for the fractions. I don't really like this series of slides, but you know, lots of people can use trace paper, less people can use Revit, even fewer people Rhino, 3ds Max, and so you just sort of have more and more kind of obscure technologies that are invading AEC that do, you know, powerful things, but fewer and fewer people can use them. And you know, people that actually can build Grasshopper scripts that can actually utilize Galapagos is like, I don't know, many orders of magnitude smaller. You know, here's my joke is that, you know, people that can actually utilize refineries, like, you know, I made the bar chart larger so you can see it. Death by options, you know, this was feedback that we got in 2017 or 2016, actually. I'd rather have 3 good options than thousands of bad options. Humans are paralyzed with option overload, meaning we will brood instead of work. So we're not a generate a million options and you get, you know, sort through it kind of company. And probably the damning thing of the current generative design stack is it just forgot the human altogether. Human mind is and will always be better at understanding complex problems simply than what a computer could. But what are computers better at? You know, better at math. It's all they're better at than humans is math. So what we endeavor to do, let's make it intuitive. We're going to support it. It's going to be paid, mass appeal. So that's why we work in commodity buildings only, apartments, office buildings, hotels, parking garages, quality options over quantity, and then co-creation is our core feature. So I think I'm going to do like a quick like demo because like I just said a lot of things and you know, the things don't mean diddly if you don't actually do something with it. So what I mean by co-creation tools is you could go to Dallas, Texas, which is where we're located, or the headquarters is located.
Are you sharing the right screen right now?
I don't know. Am I?
We're still looking at intuitive and all that. Yeah.
All right. Screen one. There we go. All right. So I typed in Dallas, Texas. I got a map here. You know, all you need to do in TestFit is define where your piece of land is that you want to do a building on top of, and it will generate a deal for you. So I'll draw a rectangle here, and once I have a closed boundary, TestFit will generate a building. Years and years of effort to get to this, you know, point of time, and you just click a button and you're like, oh, it's like nothing. And what we've done recently is we've started to approach more of the co-creation side. And by recently, I mean like within the first 6 months, we realized that you can't create an algorithm that can make an accurate building for everybody right from the get-go. Mm-hmm. So co-creation in our minds is when you actually reach into a generated model and you start to manipulate it. So we have this tool called manual mode. It's like exploding a block a bit. You can remove pieces of the building. You can start to craft, you know, other parts of it, and you click out of manual mode, and then it solves, you know, the areas that were previously unsolved. There's also lots of different styles of buildings that we support. So I can flip into, whoops. It's the best thing that happens when you are on a roll and then you alt tab to the wrong thing. Go to configurator, and I can do like a donut. I can do a surface park deal. I can do a hotel. I can do parking lot or parking garage, surface parking. And the thing that's really understated in all of this is that we're tabulating everything automatically using the same algorithm every single time. So every TestFit scheme is always an apples to apples comparison to each other. And so users, they might start with a donut and they might say, okay, we're going to generate, you know, some schemes from changes. And we're just going to look at, you know, if we move this parking garage around, I put it in this corner, you know, what is my scheme? If I put it in this corner, what happens? And I'm creating just some schemes from just creating different iterations like really quickly. And I can cycle through all these, and then you can also filter them with a parallel coordinate graph. Like you're getting the same sort of filtering tools that the generative design tools out there will give you, but because it's so much easier to create new schemes in TestFit rather quickly, you don't have to generate a bajillion things. Like you just use your brain, right? You're an architect, you're a designer, you understand how buildings work. So that's sort of the why of it all. Now the real thing that hit home for me is like, we just look at the whole ecosystem. Like we work with developers. Almost half of our revenue is from real estate developers. The other half is from architects. There are some general contractors in there, I will say. So we have a solution, like I just presented the solution, right? But what is the actual problem that we're solving? And I'm showing a red thing now. Y'all see it?
Yep.
Yep.
We have a solution. Something. Yep.
Yep. It's called deal opportunity cost cycles. So just give me a minute to run through one. So the way that the whole process of building a building gets kicked off is with landowners. These are people that own land, and they hire brokers. Brokers are people that sell land. Brokers send a site to a developer. These are people that buy that land, and they put a building on it for profit. And in order to do that, they have to have all these consultants. They have architects, they have contractors, subcontractors, manufacturers, and this whole ecosystem, again, investors and bankers, for a site to pass around. Like if I just look at that site initially, right? We've got one site, developer looks at it. Oh, I don't know how to draw buildings. So I hire an architect. An architect, oftentimes in the United States, is doing this work for free so that they can win the construction documents. They can win the rest of the contract. Architects send the site back to the developer. Developer gets a price through contractors. You might call this pre-con. I know Turner probably does quite a bit of that.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's subcontractors that really understand where the price is moving. Insert like lumber problems right now. Manufacturers, what kind of walls, what kind of doors, what kind of things are going into this. You have to have all this information to have a good idea of what that building that the architect designed will cost on that piece of land that the broker is selling. And this whole package goes back to the developer, and the developer, he's only about 10% of the money that is required to build the building. He has limited partners and he has debt partners. So he's got investors that are spending money like crazy to invest into real estate, which is a pretty good investment in the US at least. And then they'll say, okay, this looks good. Let's get the bank. And the bank says, okay, this whole package looks great, but we think you could probably do a little bit better. So the developer is going to take that feedback. He's going to squeeze all of his consultants again and say, okay, we need more units. We need the building to be more X, Y, or Z. Run through the cycle again. Everybody's happy. The broker says this is great. And then finally gets back to the landowner. The landowner says, oh, I was thinking I was going to get $2 million instead of 1.8. And so they're mad, and they're like, makes the broker mad. Developers, crap, we got to fix this project. Everybody's kind of like, we're going to, squeeze the architect a little bit, get some more juice out of this building, run through the cycle again, get everybody happy. Then you go into the next phase, which is like SDs. Let's get the engineers involved. Let's really solidify this thing. The engineer puts a column into place the architect doesn't like, makes them mad. And so you have this other, cycle within architecture where you're dealing with getting the assumptions of the building correct. Eventually you'll get to a place where everybody's happy, and you file a permit set with the city, and then they say no, and then everybody loses. So, this is kind of the ecosystem, right? Like this is really where all of the consultants have to come to bat for free to try to win work. And it's all opportunity costs. Very, very few people are either getting paid for this or making money on it. And we think that TestFit's really well positioned to disrupt this whole process. And it's not just getting developers to think about the building more. It's getting architects to get out of trace paper. It's getting brokers to think about the building before they even send land to a developer. And the further you get up the process, you realize the less people know about buildings. And it's like the product that the whole industry runs on is buildings. I think that's it for.
So no, that's awesome. I was just checking to see if there's any chat. So let's unpack that a little bit because that's awesome. And I think anyone out there who's dealt with, even as you mentioned, right, any project that's somewhat bank-led or developer-led will have some form of this, right? Even if there's not a real estate developer involved, if there's a bank involved and there's someone, there's some aspect of this, even like a public project, right? The people, the names there might be different, but the reality is, right, that's a piece of it. So then I think, given that probably most of the audience here today are on the architecture, construction, engineering side of this, maybe unpacking that a little bit. You made a great point, which is a lot of architects are doing this work for free anyways, which is very true, right? This may be getting the work or interviewing for the work, or even, doing a little service for the developer, to lay out the test fit and do it. So I think that's great because what you're doing is taking a service that could take a very long time on trace, and you're helping sort of, I guess, make that more efficient, but also almost automatic, right?
Yep.
I think the what I think is fascinating is this idea of, instead of calling it generative design, is talking about this idea of co-creation. And so maybe because I do think that as an architect myself, and not to say I feel this way, because I'm sort of understanding the global importance of it, is I'm saying, well, that's taking away my passion of laying out a building. And so, like, what, not to say again that I believe that, but like to someone who believes that, maybe they spend 40 hours a week doing these drawings and stuff, what, maybe demonstrate, or what's your response to that, or maybe how that co-creation and some of those tools react. Because I think, to me, not just generating the floor plan, but the way that you can, move the things around and see the changes, to me is huge, right? Instead of pumping out 1 million changes and then saying this one, you're kind of setting the parameters and shifting and then seeing the reaction.
Yeah. I don't, like, again, we started in parking, like parking garages, right? Like, I don't know of a single architect that's passionate about arraying parking stripes across a rectangle. And then you kind of say, okay, like, are you passionate about changing your UCS so you can get parking stalls at a slightly different angle? And to draw that efficiently in CAD is very hard to do. So I get the point of, like, you're removing the sanctity of the player tip pin and the trace paper. The same people that are saying that, like, are also the same people saying that someone should do something about the housing crisis.
Right.
So, like, I think there's a lot of hypocrisy in AEC, especially when it comes to technology. Mm-hmm. And like, I sell automation tools to people that sell their time. So, we're doing something right. And, I think it just comes down to the insecurity that architects have. Like, traditionally, they've been the gatekeepers of, site plans. Like, architects are really, really smart at spatial thinking. And guys that run spreadsheets are not typically the same kind of spatial thinker that you would imagine. Mm-hmm. So there's that piece of information. You can look at more developed, older markets like Europe, where development shops have basically consumed the architecture practice. And so, when I'm talking to the AIA, they invited me to speak to their strategic council here in the US. I don't know why they would do, you're inviting a bull into a china shop. And, I said, your profession will die if you do not change, if you don't figure out a better way to monetize your value, and to make yourself absolutely important to the process. Architecture is going to be a shadow of what it is today. Mm-hmm. And I think the way they do that is by owning the process, like being the masters of the data. And it has more to do with how you generate and manipulate data than it does to with like the flare tip pen on trace paper. Like your value can be absolutely tied to the data. And I think we're seeing some people kind of go in that direction, and you get lots of tech enabled firms that are actually really tech enabled. But then again, the firms that can afford to be tech enabled are massive. It takes a lot of capital expenditure to be tech enabled.
Yeah.
So I feel for them, and if you buy a copy of TestFit, it's like getting, the full cost of a computational designer, in a much smaller fee. So we've had tremendous success with medium to small size architecture firms.
Yeah.
But maybe
no one really wants to do those parking, like actually figure out where those parking stalls are or where the like exactly how those units go in place.
We're offending the one guy out there who's like, oh yes I do.
I do.
I love it.
No, it's like, I mean, I'm not an architect, but I can certainly understand how people would enjoy, like figuring out the form of a building. And I would say, TestFit is not taking away from that. It's just making it so that you don't have to count how many units are in that building, and how much square footage is there. Hopefully it can make your job rules, even more fun.
Yeah, and that's why I like that idea of co-create instead of generative design or computational design, just as a term, because the idea is even if I enjoy massing the building and sketching, because that's just that's why I decided to do architecture, because I actually like to draw things and design things. The reality is you're still doing that within a set of rules regardless, right? And so when I see tools like TestFit, it's just showing you here's what the rules say, and then as the architect you can figure out how you want to apply them, right? And that's well, I think what Clifton is saying is that's the value that the architect actually adds, isn't necessarily making sure the building's code compliant based on the set of rules from the very beginning to show like number of elevators, number of stairs, number of corridors, number of parking spaces. It's what you do with that information, right? What you do with that data.
So let me get a little bit more. I should have worn a black turtleneck, but I went to the University of Texas at Austin. For architecture school. When I got in, it was the third ranked school in the U.S. and very heavy design focus. My definition of architecture is the meaningful creation of space. That is how I define architecture. If it is not meaningfully created, it's probably not going to be good architecture. And so I think my initial reaction to generative design was like, it's abhorrent. Like you just create like the Autodesk 3-box mass generator that comes with the Revit generative design thing. Like, okay, like it worked on one site, for one set of rules, and it's not very extendable. They didn't really embed the intelligence of a designer. There was not much meaningful creation. It was just generate a bunch of crap. And so let me get back to TestFit, because like that's what we're here.
No, I think we're actually going in a great direction, because kind of the next thing I was thinking, which to me is sort of the unknown. So we kind of talked about the developer, architect, contractor, bank, all that relationship, and where TestFit fits in. So we've hit that. So now my thought and my sort of lack of knowledge in this process is, showing some of what the tool does on the co-create side, but then where does it go from there? So what does the process look like from now that, let's say, all those boxes turn green, right? And maybe I'm the architect and we've got the yay, let's do it. Or maybe we're in the process of sort of working with that iterations between it. What does that process look like? Sort of from that moment forward. I'm super curious. I'm sure there's some folks out there, especially us Revit geeks who barely even pay attention to this part of it, because we're maybe some of us aren't even on the job until it's actually beyond all of that city garbage, right? But I think it's interesting to see sort of, okay, I see now the value TestFit's adding to this very early stage, but like how does that now progress through the rest of a project?
Yeah. So design for documentation. This is where Nat and I have been spending our Fridays, kind of discussing. And we do it on YouTube Live with our 4 people. But
we'll make sure to link to your channel on this. Don't you worry.
Yeah.
We'll get 6 people next time.
Yeah,
maybe 10.
everyone
Maybe
smash
10.
that subscribe button, right?
We'll take like and subscribe.
Yeah.
So with the release of TestFit 2.0, we introduced a concept called KOP, Kit of Parts. And so in the app, we have this thing called the configurator. We're currently in higher density buildings, and we have a database. And so, if I actually had a preset that was like a building with units in it, we could see some units. Okay. So in the early days, we would just generate these things. Like they were meaningless. They were just like boxes that had a typical area, and that's all we wanted to do, was just to make sure that our assumptions were valid. Mm-hmm. When we released 2.0 about a year, or maybe it's 2 years ago. I think it was a year ago. I could be wrong. It was 2 years ago, 2019. We actually started to create kit of parts that TestFit solves with. And so here, I'm going to click attachments. So these are units that have a fleshed out unit plan associated with them. And then the ideal scenario is to have a unit that is already documented in Revit, maybe from a previous project or for this project. But like, we don't want to be in the business of actually generating unit plans. We feel like that's sacrosanct architecture territory, really needs an authoring tool to kind of do it. Mm-hmm. And so if I go in the editor, you can see all of the sort of inline unit plans are in orange, and then the corner conditions are in blue. So I'll flip back to site. So this is a corner condition, at least in the United States. We've got inside corner units. This is pretty standard kind of unit type. But they're weird because they have to, if you have a weird angle in your mass, here, I can just make a weird angle real quick. If I've got a weird angle, they've got to respond to the building mass somehow. Mm-hmm. And you can see where the algorithm breaks down because it doesn't know how to take an orthogonal unit and turn it into a non-orthogonal unit. And so the feedback for the user is, hey, you're going to have to actually draw these in an authoring tool. Outside corner units, same thing. They kind of have a little bit of wiggle room. But in general, inline units are most, if not, like, they're the vast majority of units in the US. So inline unit, here's an A2. It's got a scaled image of all those unit plans in here. It's just capturing that unit in a JPEG. And what do we not like about Revit geometry? It is very heavy. It is very hard to have a unit in Revit geometry and to left click, drag that unit to a different part of the building. Mm-hmm. So these are the co-creation tools I'm talking about. You can move a staircase, you can move units, you can adjust the massing, make it a single load mass. You can look at it in 3D. You can start to pull the height of the building up and down. You can take a space. This is like an amenity space. You can change its type from like an amenity area, turn it into a void, and now I have a rooftop deck. Mm-hmm. And then 2.16, which will be released next week, which is the version I'm running right now. You can now start to create planes where the building can't be. So co-creation, it's like sculpting. Mm-hmm. And the tabulations, everything is taken for granted. It's just done. You don't have to go through and count everything and make sure you have the right counts and everything. We're solving the unit mix in real time. Right here, we're targeting a 50% one beds. We got 51%. Sorry, we got close. But this is co-creation. Like, mm-hmm. This is the computer's solving the stuff that you don't really want to solve at this stage. And the user is meaningfully creating the building. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's funny because while you're doing this, as an architect myself who has designed buildings, like this is the process of massing out the building. But it is assisting. Like it like a tool like this would be very beneficial, because what happens as an architect as you're doing this is, you may think of a form, think of a floor plan, do it all, and then you start putting in these restrictions, like if there's a variance, like you just showed, if you have to have a setback that's up in the air, blah blah blah, or these, and then all of a sudden you have to resculpt your building based on these rules. So you're putting in place these rules anyways, and then you're using those to formulate the building, which is awesome.
Yeah.
So again, now where do we go from here?
Yeah, where do we go from here? So, we've already got these sort of units fleshed out, and I'm not saying that we're done with the design phase. Like we're probably not done. Like there's a lot more things that need to be done. For example, like I probably should drop some elevators in. So, add some couple of lifts there. I'll make this a core. This is a new feature. It adds a little bit of space back to the unit.
Mm-hmm.
Some customer feedback. And so then, the question is, all right, how are we going to share this with the client? Some of our customers, they just generate the PDF. We get a little PDF export, it makes a report. You can take sort of 3D views and you can capture them. So here's create a view and create another view. I'm going to turn the colors off. I hate our colors, by the way. They're like, our colors are so bad because I want our customers to change them to custom colors. And they haven't. So we're probably going to change our default colors. So this looks a little bit better maybe. And then you can, if you're able to get a good visualization in TestFit, keep doing that thing where I accidentally hit the top bar and it jumps to the other screen. I can go to my shadows, can try to find so we'll do multiple shadows. We'll sort of put them all within the same kind of time area. And then, okay, or we get like a good sort of visualization and, add that as a view, and you can spit all this out in a PDF. That's if you are, trying to send this to a developer like within 10 minutes and, you can do that. The other really interesting thing that we've been training our customers, or specifically our architecture customers on, is real-time deal prototyping. So like, it's like a Zoom call like this, where I have all the stakeholders. I'm like, bring the construction guy, bring the developer, bring everybody. We have this development panel where the developers can plug in their, it's called deals. They can plug in their assumptions, and they can see the building respond in real time to these assumptions. So, for example, if the per parking stall below grade is $45,000 for a parking space, and if it's above grade is 22,000, 22. And I'm not going to mess with the other parameters, but we could start to see the expense in real time of going below grade. So I'm going to go below grade, and our yield on cost dropped nearly 0.5% just by going below grade. Well, you could say, well, now I don't need to have that other floor above grade, so I'm going to reduce that. And now my yield on cost jumped up again. But hey, maybe I had a height limit. Now I can add another level back to the building, and my yield on cost shot up again. So you can kind of model these little changes in real time. And the developers, like, you start to hear them, you start hearing what they want out of the deal, and they start getting excited about building design, like for the first time in their career.
It's not all about stucco and less glass, right?
Yeah, like they're not so prone to want to get EFIS, into the building from the get-go.
Right. We're starting with EFIS. That's it.
And Clifton, Anthony in the chat asked if we could bring in site context also.
Oh yeah.
A couple questions on site. Yeah, there's site context and topography.
We've got a Mapbox API that seems to be kind of broken right now in the beta. I think we got to fix that. But in the live version, the buildings come in and they look not terrible. But we do want to build maybe a little bit of a context generator but then like at that point, we're like, well, are we kind of replacing SketchUp in some ways, and or Formit, or whatever your brand of 3D modeling is. We'll likely do it just because it's consistently asked for.
The other question too was, is there any way to take into account topography adaptation? And so I guess on sites with slopes, maybe that actually affect some of the zoning regs or something like that.
Yeah, it's great. We just finished this envelopes, this thing where you can do this, and took forever. And we're like, great. Now we know the first thing that people are going to ask for is topo.
You know it. The hardest thing and the one thing you don't want is always what people are going to ask for, right? It's just like when we used to do when we used to present design options to clients. It's like either don't ever show them an option you don't want, or try and make it so that the option you don't want looks the worst or something like that, so that they don't choose it.
Yeah. So what I will say about grade is that, if I do a on-park deal, I can actually use the spaces feature to kind of void out where there would be grade. And so, you're an architect, there's a giant hill here or something. You can void out building as easily as you can create it. So this is sort of how we handle grade today. I would like to automate it. I would like to get the 3D terrain in here. But it's just a matter of resource allocation. We felt envelopes was a more important feature, so we did that first.
That sounds like something that would be before grade for sure, especially if you start getting to more urban settings. That those skylines and garbage is always an issue. Another question that somebody had was, actually I think Anthony had it as well, was not just context. Oh no, it wasn't Anthony. Who was it? Garrett. For the site boundaries. So you clicked and created a quick site boundary. He asked if you had a survey with a real accurate boundary, could you bring that in instead of clicking and doing the boundary?
Yes. Let's see. Add background image. Let's see here. I did this the other day. Sorry, we got like family photos and memes and stuff in here. So this is a survey loader where I basically just grabbed a random survey off the internet, and you can scroll in, and that's 275. Enter, and then you can either draw on top of this, or what I'm really not going to do on a live stream is to define the meets and bounds.
That's okay. Yeah. So you could use this as a trace, or you could actually define the meets and bounds and sort of draw the property line. Is that okay? Cool.
Yeah. And then one of the later features that we released, actually, we connected with GIS, our first GIS layer. Let's see, reset site. Actually, go to Austin. So they have nice small parcels in Austin. Site defined from parcels, and then we load up all these GIS parcels, and then you can click plus, and then I think shift, and you can like define an assembly. It's wild how they built this. So if you don't have a survey, we've got a parcel partner that's got some. It's I think 98% of the U.S. is covered.
Yeah, with GIS.
Yep. So that's, there's a few ways to define sites now. It used to be back in the day that you would have to define the site on your first go. You couldn't edit the property line. People were like, yeah, we're going to want to be able to edit the property line. I'm like, okay, so we'll do that. So, now you can move the property line a little bit.
Awesome. So I'm just looking here. ACAD Gatsu just, you would need quality topo, obviously. Yeah. The topo thing, yeah, that's a can of worms. I'm sure you guys have process mapped and said, hold on, let's not do that. Especially if you're trying to use data for topo, because it's just if you have data from an actual survey, that's one thing, but trying to use public data for topography is, maybe a few places you'll get something that's usable, right?
I don't like the whole thing.
All right, we'll put a squash to that.
I think Jacob also asked about using custom units.
Yeah, he did.
If you want to show the editor real quick, I think that's a pretty helpful bit.
Oh, the custom unit. I thought I did that. All right. What I'm realizing is when I demo something, people don't often take everything in that I just demoed, you know, because I live and breathe it every day.
Right. It's like
Um,
someone demoing Revit to someone who's never opened it before and just clicking through without explaining what the hell they're clicking. Like, it
yeah.
would be
All
a
right.
nightmare.
So we've got a terrible wrap building here. We're building way more parking than we need, but hey, it's a demo. I'm going to scroll into this A3. I'm going to right click it. I'm going to say edit. It opens up the unit editor, that specific unit. Everybody hates outboard balconies, so this unit's going to be like a premium unit with some inset balcony. And then we're for sure going to add a bay because bays are really cool. We're going to chamfer that puppy. All right. Okay. We go back to the site, and then that unit is now updated with that new bounding box.
Nice.
So that's the general idea. If you have a unit plan that you would like to bring in as context information, that is also usable feature.
Awesome. Great. All right, since Nat is here, I think we should talk a little bit about some of the integrations and maybe beyond PDFing images and sort of live meetings like this. You know, if you want to take this data now and maybe bring it into Revit, CAD, whatever software, SketchUp, whatever software you're using. I know that's something that you guys have been working on a little bit. So I think people here may be interested in just seeing a preview of what that could look like and how that could unfold maybe.
Yeah, for sure. Let me share my screen real quick. Not that one. There we go. Let me know if you can see that.
Let me give some context here before Nat dives in.
Sure.
Yeah.
So he's working on a lot of stuff right now. One of the questions about getting CAD information into TestFit, he's built a tool to take a property line from Revit into TestFit. He's building a way of taking Revit unit plans like the ones that are here. So actually, these unit plans are a great story in and of themselves. They're terrible unit plans. Again, because whenever I draw stuff for TestFit, I'm like, I want people to change it. And actually, I asked Aaron Mahler, Parallax team, I'm like, hey, do you think you could make these units in BIM so that we could build out this workflow? And he goes, yeah, sure. And then he goes, you know, these units are terrible. Like, yes, I know. So Parallax team, thank you for modeling these for us. Nice. They have all the amazing Parallax families in here. And so what we wanted to do with Nat was figure out a way to create the Kit of Parts file, TestFit Kit of Parts file within Revit. Mm-hmm. And so he's built something that does that. He's built a way of translating TestFit geometry into BIM geometry. So there's really a lot of things that Nat could show us. I mean, maybe we could ask the chat, you know, do you want to see a building do you want to see a TestFit building turned into BIM? Do you want to see BIM turned into Kit of Parts? Actually, Allison said it's cool.
remember, there's like a 6 to 9 second delay. So Aaron was just hearing that, I bet. Aaron probably thought that he just wasn't going to tell you. That's what it is. See?
Yeah, no, he's remarkably neutral in all things.
I'm excited to see what they want. What do the people want?
What do the people want?
Probably the most insane thing is like just to generate a BIM model from TestFit with the walls and stuff. But
yeah, I mean,
the units is like the next level thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think that sounds like something people would like to see.
Yeah, I think so. Let's.
The only person who commented so far was Garrett, and he said, yes, turn a TestFit into a Revit model. So Garrett, since you're the one who replied so far, we're going to listen to you.
All right.
He also asked a great question before, so we'll give it to him.
Okay, so what we can do
Nat, don't screw up.
Yeah,
you're only live in front of 130
how many
people.
people?
No big
130 people.
No
All
big
right,
deal.
Here we go. All right, so we'll start from scratch. So we have TestFit, right? We want a nice little deal, so we draw that there. Well, let's just make sure that looks all right. Okay, so we've got parking units. That's about it.
in Nat's version, he's got little air conditioning
I
units
see
on
that.
top of
Yeah,
his
yeah.
Yes, yes.
Nice.
Well, we
Yeah.
can talk about that later.
Yeah. Engineering eventually in TestFit. All right, so let's call this BIM After Dark live and save that file.
RSD. Interesting. That's the file name, the extension.
That is
Yep.
the TestFit extension. Yeah.
That's cool.
All right, so
There's a story there too if you want to hear it.
I mean, sure, let's do it.
All right.
Do
While
that
Nat,
while this loads up.
while Nat's loading, while we turn to the slower part of the process, which is Dynamo. Okay, so when Ryan and I first released TestFit, it was called Residential Engine, and our company name was Building Forge. So I would go into meetings and I would say, I'm from Building Forge, and we're going to show you Residential Engine, and they're like, "Can you say that again?" They're like, "Still didn't get it." So this was my first lesson in marketing, is that you have to have something simple for someone to remember. And so that's a long way to say, like, we turned our name into TestFit, but there was one thing that didn't change the name, and that's the save file. So I think it's like residential save data or something. I don't know what, Ryan. Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's amazing.
But there's a story behind it too. So another part of marketing is you could tell a story, right?
Oh yeah.
There you go.
Yes, we had a blunder. Now listen to this story.
Yeah, actually, Aaron Mileage is pretty funny. He just made a comment. He said Dynamo is always the slowest part of the process, which is pretty funny when you think about it, right? Because it's a tool that's designed to speed up most processes, but the actual act of using it ends up being the slowest part of most processes. So pretty ironic there, I guess.
Nat already generated the whole thing.
No, so that's an old one. I just want to make sure that it may be out of the way of that old building, but I wanted to have that as an example for later. So the idea right now that we're working with is that TestFit is really good at helping you design things. And the reason we go to Revit a lot of times is because it's pretty good at documenting things right now, or it at least has the foothold on documenting things. So this is just a prototype right now, but hopefully what we'll do is turn this into an add-in so that people don't have to use
don't send people this spaghetti strip and tell them, hey, this is how you get it.
Yeah, exactly. No one wants to do that. I mean, some people want to do this, but that percentage of people is very low. So we know, getting a Revit add-in is like most people can do that. So this is the add-in. Basically, what you have to put on input is your RSD file. And then the family types that you want for each building object. So you have your roof, your floor, all your walls, and whatnot. So if we just run this, and hopefully it's not going to hit that other building in the model.
You don't want a whole bunch of errors.
We'll get a Levius Woods building, right?
Yeah, there we go.
And 1,000 errors in Revit of overlapping geometry or something.
Yeah.
They just don't respect our design vision.
There we go.
I can't do that. Okay. And so there's your building. Took like 5 seconds. And so what that's doing, that's bringing in, your roof, your floors, all your common walls, all your exterior walls. And they're all differentiated. So, if you wanted your balcony wall to be a glass balcony, you just change that as one of your families here.
Yes, Nat, I don't want my balcony to be basic wall design generic into.
Hey, I'm a mechanical engineer. All right, this is what you get. Design generic in two. Yeah. So that's the idea there.
So we should say that we have spent an inordinate amount of time building Dynamo Nodes to make this process seamless. Our Dynamo Nodes, they take the TestFit save geometry, which the way we save it is like each unit is a polygon, but when you build BIM, you don't really want a polygon. You want like which part of this polygon is facade and which part of this is common area. And so our Dynamo node does all of that math for you. And
Sick.
then you just got to wire it up to your families. Also hire someone like Nat who knows how all this stuff works.
I don't see any parking spaces in there though.
We actually haven't done that yet.
Oh man.
True.
Oh man.
That,
There's the only thing worse than
feature.
doing parking spaces is doing parking spaces in Revit.
I can't even imagine how awful that is. Dear God. And then so we have like two. Do we have enough time for a little more? I have we don't have to run the scripts, but I can show you kind of what our thoughts are on it. And if anyone has feedback, please feel free to put it in the chat so we can just ignore it. Just kidding.
No. Email nat@testfit.io.
There you go. Yeah.
Send all of your BIM problems to him, even if it's not related to us.
Yeah. My cell number is 555. So the next idea, actually, let me grab. Yeah, this is one of them. Would be to bring. So like, say the context is you have all these typical units, and you want to start a TestFit file. So what you would do is run this Dynamo script. If you basically select the walls, and then it'll bring all the typical units into TestFit as a KOP. So like this is the 3 units that we were using in this spot. So that gives you, you have your typical units. You can bring them into TestFit and then do all the heavy lifting in TestFit instead of trying to configure these things, which would be a mess in Revit.
I mean, real quick though, we just kind of glazed over what you just did before with Dynamo, and that was pretty cool. I mean, you took the line data and all the information, and it actually converted it to Revit walls, roofs, and windows. So on a normal situation, right, most people, the process would have been what? Exporting each floor as a JPEG, bringing it in and tracing over it in Revit. I mean, that would kind of been the process of.
Give us a little bit of credit. We have a DXF export. You can
okay. So bringing that in, and then tracing it over it, right?
Vector. Yeah. No,
either way, you'd be tracing over it. So I mean, because the reality is, right, in general, you're automating more mundane processes, and this is one of them, right? Would be, it took all this time co-creating this project, and now someone's got to sit there and recreate it in Revit to make documents. So that's huge. I mean, that's a big deal. So I know we glossed over. I just wanted to bring it back because I think we glossed over it, and I don't know if anyone on the chat had time to realize what just happened there. That was a pretty big deal. I mean, it was.
I'm glad you think so, at least.
Maybe out of the 130 people, maybe a few other people think so. So we want to give you a little credit there.
Yeah, that's great. And really, I mean, all the credit goes to Ryan, our CTO that created these nodes. And if anyone wants to get the Dynamo package, just obviously go to search for package, search.
You type in TestFit. I bet you type in TestFit.
I do type in TestFit. It's almost like Google, except slower, because the Dynamo search function is awful. There we go. Yeah, this one right here. So,
awesome.
Yeah,
and then
great.
also Topologic has actually parsed the RST file too, so they've done that.
Yeah, that one too. Yeah. So, and then I guess the last one, which is kind of the most complex thing that we've done so far with Revit is say you have say you've brought these typical units into TestFit. You built out your TestFit building. You brought your normal geometry or your like common geometry back in, so exterior walls and stuff. The next Dynamo script that we had will basically take these model groups. And this is what we've been working on with Parallax. Take these model groups and then place it within the units themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So this was the example I wanted to show, and that's why this model's a little bit slow. So in this case, I think this script took like a few minutes to run, and now you have all your geometry within the units themselves.
So it's using the TestFit generated demising walls, and then it's placing the group within the unit location.
Yep.
Yes.
Nice.
So we avoid. Someone asked a question about duplicated party walls. We
there you
avoid
go.
that. We don't,
Yeah.
it's not
Anyone who's ever the reason they asked that is because anyone who's ever dealt with groups and Revit and units like this, that's always the question, is figuring out how you treat the party wall, right? How do you treat it? Is it part of this group, part of that group, excluded in this group, etc. Yeah.
Yeah, luckily Ryan was the one that had to deal with that, not me. So I was very happy about that. But you do have the interior walls. I brought up a day or so ago, actually. Obviously, if you have a large building with all these model groups, it's not great for your model. It just gets way too heavy. So we are thinking of possibly making something that, we can have a XREF of a typical unit brought in, so then you don't have the heft of a full
model group.
Yeah.
Revit's not great at multi-family. You have 300 kitchens, 450 bathrooms. You got a lot of stuff.
Yep. Yeah, it's always a struggle. I see it a lot in healthcare too. Patient rooms, and it's always fun to see how designers approached the units. Do they do a link? Do they do groups? Do they just ignore it all and just draw it 1,000 times? Like, because I've seen all three versions, which is pretty funny.
Yeah, I just draw it in TestFit and generate the BIM when you need the document. Right?
Well, that's interesting because somebody did ask a while ago in the chat, and as someone who before joining Turner, the firm that I worked for was we did a lot of K through 12 work and a lot of healthcare work, and somebody asked about sort of building types and where you see TestFit and what options you have for building types. And so I do think the value of what you've created here could apply to those building types. I'm just curious as to how you see TestFit fitting into those.
That's a great question. So I kind of glossed over the fact that we don't just do multifamily.
I think you mentioned one sort of the 3 or 4 areas that you focused on in the beginning, but I don't think you did actually talk about what building types currently sort of TestFit algorithm can run.
Yeah, so I'm just gonna draw a rectangle because I don't know. Let's see. I'll do a core-based building. This is our minimum viable product for office. It's got a life safety feature. It's got a bathroom generator. It's got an elevator bank generator. It's in its infancy, really, but I'm pretty proud of the fact that users can specify, more assembly area. And, what happens when you specify more assembly area? You either need to generate wider staircases or more staircases. So we've got a load factor that's kind of dynamically sizing these cores. And I think someone asked about a REST API. We don't have that yet, but we want to. And having, a stair generator that's driven by a floor load is definitely something that would be part of that. We've got a lower density housing released. This is just like a townhouse generator. It's again, and this is kind of the first iteration of it. But our customers were asking us because during COVID, like a lot of lower density housing really, really exploded.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So you could even say, okay, we're only going to do triplexes or duplexes or single deals. You can have driveways or no driveways. I think one of the earliest questions was something about placing a single family home or something. So it operates in the same kit of parts approach. So you can have, a different bounding box. You can move the garage. Maybe it's a 1-car garage or something. And then there's a bay, go back to the site. You can kind of see what that would look like. So this is really our first iteration of lower density. I'm not wild about it. I am a new urbanist, so I find it a little bit harder to
generate
get
these.
Excited. Yeah, to get real excited about it. But I mean, this is where the market's headed. Also, like debt is super cheap right now. So we're like, this is why lumber is skyrocketing in price, is like so many single family homes are being built. And oftentimes it's like civil engineers that lay out these neighborhoods. Like architects are not even consulted, when they're doing these things. So, there's 3D, kind of mess around with it in 3D. And then, so the higher density buildings, we do have a hotel function. Let's see, I'll go hotel standard. And so what this does is it lays out the building on modules. So if you're doing volumetric modular, we've got several customers doing volumetric modular. They're using this tool to basically do their co-creation and facade bump outs and stuff. But what you can do here is like I can right click this unit type queen. I can change it to a queen, and it updates the tabulation real time. So if you have units of the same width, like you can hot swap them real easily. And then also like with the hotel comes, you need a healthy back of house space. You might need a gym. So we have the spaces tool that you can kind of start building that vision. So this is more of a surface parked hotel deal. You probably would not have it in two buildings. You might just have it in one big building. And then the modular stuff is relatively new. So I'll do dynamic modules. And so you might notice that the building is attempting to stay orthogonal. We spent a lot of time creating this system that you could either have it be an orthographically generated building, or you can disable orthographic and you can still get sort of the weird odd shapes that we're known for in multifamily.
Nice.
Am I missing anything? I think that's
no. I think that was it. I think that sort of it shows the building types, but I also think when you just showed even like the multifamily / duplex type of housing, row housing, whatever you want to call it. I think that sort of alludes to what I was getting to, which is I think the tool, the foundation of this tool, even though it was created for the developer market that you were, that you were looking to solve way back when, I think there's a ton of value, and that's what you're showing there that can be used in other market sectors. That's all. Because when you start looking at things like people were mentioning in the chat, which is schools and hospitals, those are things that have very similar. They actually do have a lot of similarities to the high density, residential that you're talking about, where you have usually patient room types. There's space. The amenity type spaces. There's the nurses station. Like it's actually very similar. In schools even too, right? You have classroom types, and so I think it's
awesome. We get RSD files like from people. They're like, hey, can y'all look at this and can you help me make it better? And you open it up and it's like classrooms and wet labs, and
that's awesome.
They're using like a lot of buildings are double-headed quarter style buildings. Like you can use TestFit to do those kinds of buildings. It's just less automatic, right? Like we haven't considered, like you have to go through a process of considering how to meaningfully generate those building types,
right?
And until we do that, it's still going to be a manual process of getting there. There was one other thing I wanted to show you guys, and we spent a lot of time last year working on this integration, but some of the early feedback we got about our parking garages is, hey, my stall average is way too high or low. Where am I parking? Like, where are the columns? This is not, a realistic garage. So we've got some friends over at Thornton Tomasetti that have given us access to their structural AI. And it's amazing how it works. I turn on this column buffer.
Wow.
And then I click this button and I say, heck yeah, I want those columns. It goes to their API, it sizes the columns, and then it returns them to the app.
Nice.
Mind blowing, I think, for people that have had to be in coordination meetings, where they're just struggling to place like every single column.
Oh my God, I know. Yep. If we put this here, how many spots do we lose? If we put this here, how many spots do we lose? I mean, that's I've been in those as well.
Yeah, I think this is one of my favorite new features of TestFit because it's like it's really I don't see many other softwares doing this where we're actually interacting with design knowledge from like one of the best structural companies in the country.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Now you got to do it with ductwork.
Yeah, I know, right? Who doesn't love ductwork?
Oh man, oh this has been awesome. This has been awesome. Everyone seems to be enjoying it because they're hanging around. So I appreciate you guys joining us. I appreciate everyone on chat who hung out with us live. We can clearly do this all day, but I guess we eventually have to say stop, so we'll stop. but we'll definitely have to have you on again and chat, down the road and see what you've done with the program. For people who want to learn more and reach out to you guys and chat, what's the best way? How can they find you?
Oh man. Wait, no, I didn't show my meme. I gotta show my meme.
Oh, show your meme. There it is.
There we go. Yeah. All right.
Here, I'll spotlight you real quick so everyone can see it. There you
go. Yeah. So this was our April Fool's joke, like back in 2 or 3 years ago or something. But I think it still rings true today. Like you either can get help with this type plan or just draw it without the help of the computer. So we do both, and of course we love Clippy, so he's a great partner when editing Word documents. Follow us on Twitter if you want to. DM us Twitter. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. Honestly, if you have like AIA in your name, I always just accept. I don't care who you are. PE too. Engineers. I mean, Nat's starting to get into more, some of the mechanical engineering problems that we want to solve. We want to get to the last, 4 or 5% of detail in the building from a feasibility standpoint that we haven't gotten to.
Awesome.
Like there was a question about ADA accessible vans. We don't do that yet, but that's like.
And I think someone was talking about vertical HVAC components, so taking into account shaft space and
that's one of the most requested features right now,
right? Because that's right.
It's one of those things. all the trades have to coordinate around that.
We got this perfect building, but wait a minute, where's all the ductwork going?
Where are the shafts?
Oh, that's awesome.
We do offer free trials. If you don't want to talk to us, you can put in a credit card and we give you a 7-day free trial without billing you. You can also cancel it within that 7-day period. If you sign up for a demo, we're likely to give you a 30-day free trial just because we know a little bit more who you are. And then what else do we do? We make money somehow, Nat. I don't really know how. It's like a monthly.
I think people like our software.
Yeah. And your website is testfit.io, right? So people can go there. I'll make sure to put links in the description for sure after this. Awesome. Well, this has been a fun conversation, guys. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks, Jeff.
Thanks for coming on.
Thanks so much. This was a lot of fun.
Awesome. And thank you everybody for joining us live today. I'll be here next week. Actually, next week, believe it or not, is episode 50. So 50. And I have something really cool planned. So make sure you tune in next week at 7:30 on Thursday. So thank you guys for joining me. Thank you to everyone here live and those of you watching this in the future. You guys are amazing. And with that, I bid you all adieu. Have a great weekend.